once.
No
So,
problem.
how you doing, James?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. This is interesting to me. With the film festival premiere this Saturday. Now, what time again?
So 4 o'clock. So
Okay.
they're doing like a little mini festival by streaming a few of their offerings. It's not the full festival. It's just kind of like a hand-picked few. So Berzerkers, our film, is at 4 o'clock this Saturday.
Freepfilmfestival.com. Freepfilmfestival.com for everybody. And I don't know what I was expecting. When I heard that you were involved in a film project, I figured cooking, behind the scenes, the inspiration, the mythology, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you take me down this road where I'm introduced to a band, Brownbird, that I could be a normal host and go, oh, I knew all about them. Never heard of them in my life, and
Yeah.
spent an hour last night. So give everybody the backstory, James, how this project came to be.
So Brownbird, I had a friend actually who lives in Brooklyn who texted me one night, was like, this is years ago, maybe 2010, 2011. And was like, yo, there's this band I just saw. You got to look them up. They're incredible. So I looked them up and I was like, wow, like I was blown away. I loved their sound. And I guess like I was opening the Root then. And from the Root, I went on Top Chef. And then from the Top Chef, I developed Mabel. And kind of along my path of like, my career starting, I'm getting a lot of creativity, a lot of like, I'm kind of like growing up, and this band was evolving kind of as my career was evolving. So they would put out a new album and they would completely reinvent their sound. And it just, every time I was reintroduced to like a new band, a new angle, and it really inspired me from a creative outlook that no one should sit still. No artist should be pigeonholed. So a lot of what I wanted to create at my restaurant now, Mabel Gray, was inspired by that kind of evolution of creativity, that you don't have to be the same ever. And that's why, one of their songs is named Mabel Gray, where I kind of got inspired to research Mabel Gray, the woman, and then obviously named the restaurant after both the historical figure as well as the band.
But the band, to your point, the band Brownbird, the more we learn about Brownbird, that they did evolve from a larger band to smaller, eventually wound up just being David and Morgan Eve, right?
Correct. Yeah, they were a 5-piece band. Well, it was originally like just Dave, really quiet. Like you go way back to this like 2000. Oh my gosh, I feel like 3. It was just like, it was his project. And then he added a 5-piece band, and that's kind of where they broke into the mainstream a little bit with some with their album Devil Dancing. A little bit louder sound, kind of in that like Americana folk category. But with that group, he fell in love with Morgan Eve, and they became a 2-piece. And Dave became a multi-instrumentalist. So he would drum, sing, play banjo. I mean, all sorts of crazy instruments. He was almost like what you saw, like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins,
Right.
When you go see him in concert, I mean, the guy would just be doing so many different things, so many different rhythms. Every part of his body was carrying a rhythm. And then Morgan Eve is a multi-instrumentalist. She'll play cello and bass and electric bass and violin. And it was incredible to see them become a 2-piece, actually increase their sound by decreasing their band.
Well, and that's something that, you mentioned any relationship, and we'll get into that in a second, where this goes. But he seemed to draw more out of her. And I'm wondering, in the course of your conversations with Morgan Eve, I wonder if she realized she was capable of playing some of those instruments and the sounds. And then conversely, it seemed like having a soulmate like Morgan Eve made David, like you said, someone who is willing to try different instruments and maybe not just get locked into one sound.
Yeah, I definitely think that the band's evolution was like a combination of like 2 very skilled people coming together, obviously falling in love. So the lens became more concentrated because it's 2 people that are in perfect harmony. But you definitely could hear them. You hear it in songs, especially the back and forth where like they're making each other stronger musicians, and the listener is really the beneficiary of what they would put themselves through as artists. So, I mean, I still find myself listening to their albums and picking up things that I didn't hear before. Like there's the amount of detail that they would carry in 2 people, 1 song, 1 album, recorded 5 years ago. I'm still pulling things out. I mean, more than 5 years ago now, probably 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago that a lot of their albums are. It sounds like it came out today. I mean, it's just, I can't explain. Like you just said, you went down the rabbit hole listening to Brownbird.
Right.
They're a band best listened to, like, kind of like in the chronological order. of like Devil Dancing and On. So you can really hear the evolution of that band. You hear that with a lot of bands, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, bands, they say like, oh, wow, listen to them evolve. But I feel like it's so specific with these two because the sound, I mean, and then obviously, with Dave's passing, you see this like eclipse in time. It's really emotional for me. And that's why I made this film was that I've spent so much time thinking about this band. I named a restaurant after them. I pulled a lot of my creative energy and my freedom here as a chef. I'm not going to have the same menu twice. I'm going to do whatever I want. That confidence came from Brownbird. Watching them as artists inspired me to be as confident as they were to change.
So when did you go from fan to friend with the band?
I met them once on the road, and I was scheduled to host them at the Root, and then Dave fell ill on that tour. So about 10 days away from them playing at the Root, they canceled their tour, and Dave never toured again. But I reached out to Morgan Eve, I'd say about a year ago, and they knew like I was a venue on their tour, so like
right.
it was proximity, like they were aware of this venue in Michigan, but we were not friends. They didn't know me essentially. So I reached out to Morgan Eve a little over a year ago and just said, hey, like I have this idea. I named my restaurant after your band. I want to come out and make a film. Obviously, in very respectfully and good taste. It's kind of like it's a little bit awkward because you're asking for like, hey, open your life to me. Talk about the deepest, darkest corners of your world, and I'm gonna make a film about it. And I promise to be respectful. Like that's a trust fall. And Morgan Eve really, she really was wonderful. I mean, I feel like she was more confident than maybe I would even be talking about something like that. But she opened up her home. She opened up, she showed us Dave's journal. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredibly moving for me. It was at times very sad and dark, and it was intense. But the final product, looking now, was really inspiring and beautiful. It kind of shows you the life of art. Art has a bigger shelf life than humanity, or than our own mortality does. And
right.
We all know that. Why do we still look at Vincent van Gogh? Why do we still listen to Mozart? Art is bigger than life, and it was really inspiring and also humbling to take on a project like that. It kind of got bigger than me quickly.
Well, I don't know how you like you said though, you were just trying to do that initially, and to reach out to her. First of all, I mean, you seem like obviously the right person to do this project, but understanding what had gone on with David, for people who aren't familiar with the story, he had leukemia, but he had a bone marrow transplant. It seemed like he was on the path to recovery.
He had basically 1 year of remission, which is, he was actually quarantined in his house for about a year, which is, kind of wildly ironic right now that we're all talking about this. But I mean, he was essentially on the mend, and the last album, Access Monday, he was recording with plans of like releasing and then getting better and touring. And so he was kind of reflecting on his illness, and then he basically had a relapse, went into a coma. And then, and then they lost him. He never came out of it. And Morgan Eve was then left with the task of finishing the album and releasing it. So she went in and, recorded some things over it, mastered some stuff, and then put the album out post-mortem. So, there's just so many circling energies with this whole process of like what she went through with that album, talking about it with this film. Now we're all in quarantine. The restaurant obviously being named after Dave, and then there's so many similarities. Like, Alice Mabel Gray was a folklore. She was a historical figure. There's a folklore that she haunts the shoreline of Lake Michigan. We think of her as a powerful, badass, woman who lived on the shore of Lake Michigan. She was a forager. She was a nudist. She was kind of like, really free spirit in the early 1900s when that wasn't necessarily popular. And so we like that energy too. That's kind of like, we have a mural of Alice Mabel Gray in our restaurant. Yep. And she was an Aries. So we did this big ram mural above her, which obviously a ram is a lamb. We have a Dave Lamb. There's a lot of this parallel energies that once we started talking to Morgan Eve, it was just like, we would just get overwhelmed with so many like parallels. She was in Michigan this past summer up north doing this like dance retreat, playing music for this like dance studio. And of course there's this road dedicated in memoriam to Dave Lamb. She's like, what the hell? That's crazy. Well, Dave Lamb had passed away. It was another gentleman in Michigan, no relation, but he was a boat mechanic up in, the Petoskey area. Well, Dave Lamb, in between albums, was a shipyard mechanic, and a lot of their music references, pirates and the ship and, shipyards. So why is Morgan Eve at this one road with Dave Lamb at the same time she's doing this film? We just had so many really interesting parallels going on this whole time that I feel like this film was just kind of like supported. There's undercurrents that were supporting our whole project from the beginning.
I love that. I love that stuff. I was thinking about you too, James. When I was growing up, one of my favorite bands was The Call. Michael Bean, The Call. And I'd lost, life happens, you get older, you move on with your music and stuff, and I'd lost touch. And then I think it was in 2010 that Michael passed away. Died suddenly. He was with his son, the motorcycle club, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. That was Michael Bean's son.
Okay.
And he died. He was over there working the soundboard for him, just traveling with his kid, and he had a massive heart attack and died.
Oh, terrible.
And it was weird because I can honestly say I hadn't listened to a song by The Call in 10 years. But from that point on, I listened to them so differently, and I listened to them more frequently than I ever did. I listened to Into the Woods by The Call, and Let the Day Begin, and Everywhere I Go, and even back to Modern Romans. And I realized how it threaded through my formative years when I was in the military. That was one of the first cassettes I had in my car. And I thought about you and Brown Bird, your development as an entrepreneur, as a restaurateur. It reflects a lot in these people, and that's a hell of a compliment for her to process as well.
Yeah, I think music is such an important part of life. Obviously everyone, you can tell just by having a conversation with anybody about their favorite bands. People will fall on their sword over defending their favorite bands. But music is a language, and really there's certain artists that appeal to you when you realize that they're speaking the language that you already know fluently in your heart or your soul or whatever appeals to you. Maybe it's, the way somebody feels about the Beatles or Leonard Cohen. Like there's something that happens when you hear an artist that triggers you and you lock in. Like you said with The Call, like once you're locked in, it's very, it's a very emotional reaction. So for me, tagging my career and my creativity kind of to this band, and then obviously to make this film and to learn more about them, it was very gratifying, but also it's kind of, it's a bonding experience. I think for Morgan Eve and I, we're lifelong friends, and I know her in a different way now, but I still, when I put on that album, that music is, it's kind of like a part of the compass. You kind of like you said, you had set down that record for so long, and then you go back to it, and you're like, you're, oh my gosh, it's like a old, it's like an old pair of shoes, or like a, it's like a, your first car. There's something that feels like it's an extension of you. And that band for sure is I feel like Brown Bird is an extension of my cooking, which is very much me.
Pedestrian question, but I want to ask it. How did this project change you?
To create in a new medium, because obviously I'm a chef, right? I make food all the time. I'm impatient when I can just hurry up and chop things and order things. I can just move fast. I feel like I got a lesson in patience. Morgan Eve, as you see in the film, she has a very specific way that she kind of talks and processes things. And she's a little bit for her music being so intense and loud, she's a very reserved and kind of quiet person. So having the story unfold, even like in our responses when we would email, I'd email her, she'd respond 3 days later, I'd respond right away. She'd respond 3 days later. And when I said, hey, what's a good time frame for us to come out? She responded with a time frame, and I bought 2 airline tickets immediately. Because I knew that if I waited 3 more days, it would change. And I was like, I sent her the screenshot. I was like, we're coming out. So, dealing with the filmmaking process and, spending time with Morgan Eve, and it just made me, I think, walk a little bit softer and kind of connect with the benefits of patience, which I've never been a patient person in my life, but it took a year to make this film. That's a long time.
That is.
To work on something, and to watch it pay off. When Morgan Eve first watched the final cut, which I really like. I showed her pieces, and then I really didn't let her get in on like the editing process until the very end. I basically showed her at the final, you know, like, here's what we have, what do you think? And like, she gave us her, you know, some notes, but I really wanted her to see the full picture, because I think it can be, I would imagine if I was Morgan Eve, like, it's overwhelming to like make a film about that intimate part of your life. You kind of need to like let the filmmakers do it and then watch the final piece. So watching her reaction and her saying like, it's perfect, you know, that was, to me, was like mission accomplished. And then Dave Lamb's father has commented on social media how much it means to the Lamb family, the Free Press Film Festival accepting it. I mean, this is my first venture in a film, and it got in the Free Film Festival. So all the patience has really paid off, which, like I said, usually I'm like, you know, I got an idea for a dish, I put it on the menu next day, the following day I take it off, I move on. But this showed me that, like, you know, slow, concise, meaningful work can have, you know, incredible value if you let it take shape at its pace. And I never knew that before.
Well, no, but James, like you just said that, like, you and in your nature, you're an impatient person by nature. But as someone who comes to Mabel Gray and love your restaurant, it's fantastic. I go there and slow down. I know I'm going to have to wait. I know that when I want to enjoy my meal, I want Paul to make me a drink, and I want to let him make me a drink.
Yeah.
So it's like 180. I mean, for you to appreciate, as a consumer, that's something that I look at and go, yeah, I just want to take my time when I come to that restaurant. And I think you're right. This whole quarantine thing has made all of us forcefully slow down. And I wound up listening to albums in their entirety. I put on the Eagles' Hotel California and listened to the whole thing. Oh my God. I had listened to all tracks in a row and forever. And like Brown Bird, the one cut that, and I'm new to this, I'm not going to, you know, I'm starting to listen to them. I was watching the Newport Folk Festival, Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah. Oh, so
in that little room, how they created that sound, and how David's voice, which you could very easily make that one splatterfest where it would just be one giant echo. The way they harnessed all that sound is amazing. And I sat, and I didn't do the YouTube thing where you fast forward 30 seconds.
Right.
I watched the whole song and I listened to it, and I'm like, I want to hear another one.
Yeah.
But that's to your point. Like, you got to slow down and appreciate this stuff. And what an amazing band.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's, you know, like I said, I find myself going back to their albums, and even an album that, like, oh, that wasn't my favorite. Now listening to it, I'm like, wow, I understand a whole new point of view. And I'll get the best example is Mark Anthony, the filmmaker that really was doing the filming and the editing. When we first started this project, he told me, he's like, hey James, I gotta be honest, I don't like love their music. I respect it, but I'm not really into it. And I was like, I actually think that's a benefit. You're not gonna be I'm biased. I love the band. I wanted someone's eye who wasn't a fan, because that can sometimes, you know, jeopardize the integrity of the film for somebody who isn't a fan of the music. Like, I can tell you, like, there's plenty of bands that I don't like, but they got great documentaries, or, you know, they cover the band. It's really interesting material. And that's what I think is special about this film, is you don't need to be a fan of the band to connect with the story. And some people like you are going to watch that and say, wow, okay, now I enjoy this music. But Mark Anthony, after a year of this, has come away with like, a really specific appreciation for this band. And like, I can kind of catch him, like, he knows the songs, he listens to them, like, he has a different point of view because of him slowing down and realizing, like, okay, well, like, why don't I like this band? Okay, maybe it's not the style of music that I listen to. Let me learn a little more. Holy crap, like, this is great stuff. And I think that I'm doing that now with some of their albums that maybe, like, you know, oh, I wasn't in the mood for that then. Now I go back and I'm like, oh my God. I have questions for Morgan Eve that I'll text her even nowadays and be like, what the hell? Like, you know, there's a song on Access Monday, which is like, if you listen to it, it's like, this is like surfer rock from like the 60s, but like with a, like, you can hear like Eastern European kind of like twist.
Sure.
And Morgan's like, oh yeah, Dave was really listening to this band a lot, or, you know, a lot of their music has a very, it's like metal. You know, they listen to the band Mastodon a lot, which is a metal band. So when you listen to Brown Bird, you'll hear metal structure, but it's acoustic. So it's just a very, you're not paying attention, you don't realize that that's actually like metal riffs. But you're like, oh my God, it's acoustic and it's heavy metal. But yet, you know, heavy metal without the distortion and the, you know, electronic plug-in sounds very different. So it's super cool to just kind of to now dissect the band knowing more than I did before.
All right, so I ask this artist all the time, so I'll ask you as a filmmaker. Someone goes, okay, I've never heard Brown Bird before. Give me one song to listen to. The first song, what should I listen to?
Ooh, that's a heavy ask. Like I said, I think for chronology's sake, The Devil Dancing was my introduction to the band. And I think that's like 2010, 2011. And obviously that's the album that Mabel Gray, the song, came from. So like my natural reaction is to say, listen to the song Mabel Gray, because you can hear what I took away. But I'll also counter that with, I asked Morgan Eve when she knew like Dave was special. Like what happened, right? Like when did you want to join the band? Because she wasn't in the band before that album. And she said Dave came into a show they were doing by himself and played Wrong Black Mare, like M-A-R-E, like a horse.
Okay.
And he played Wrong Black Mare. And she said in a loud bar, packed full of people, within the first 20 seconds of that song, everyone in that room was captivated. And she knew that she wanted to make music with that guy. She said it was basically like, that was her love at first sight moment. But watching him play Wrong Black Mare really told the story of how good of a songwriter and a storyteller he was. And that's a slow, quiet kind of song. But it's true. When you listen to that, you know that you have a dynamo on your hands. And when I listen to that song, I feel even more robbed of his early passing. I feel like when you look like Jeff Buckley or some of these other artists, Jim Croce, that died young, like there's certain songs when you hear it, and you're like, they could have been a Bob Dylan. They could have been a Tom Petty of Springsteen. Like, if they had the time, how much music was lost with their death. Like Wrong Black Mare is very expressive of that. And it's a beautiful song, and it's a really intense reflection on just how much music was silenced with losing Dave.
And I'll be honest, and we always do this when we're introduced to a new band, as a teenager or as an adult, whenever, we always tend to look for the comparison. Tell me who they're like. And I desperately resisted this with Brown Bird because I wanted to go to folk rock immediately. And I had read some of the biomaterial, and I'm thinking to myself, you're underselling them, and you're not giving them a fair chance. So you try to kick that out of your head. Like Greta Van Fleet. I get why they were so not anti-Led Zeppelin, but they're like, we just are who we are. It's not our fault that we were influenced by Led Zeppelin. Who wasn't? So for Brown Bird, yeah, they're going to be influenced by all these things, but that made them who they were.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think that, they have a softness that you find in like, old Cat Stevens, but then at the same time, they're literally playing metal riffs inspired by the band Mastodon. And then Dave is really intrigued with like Eastern European kind of like gypsy rock. So, I mean, they're very much who they are. There's really no comparison to them. If you listen to Brown Bird Radio on Pandora or Spotify or Apple, it's a pretty cool playlist because you get a little bit of everything. And I think that's, there's a lot of artists like that today. There's not pressure from record companies in the smaller circuits to be like, hey, put out an exact clone album every time. So they would kind of do whatever they wanted. The band really changed every album. So I think play around on Spotify and find the album that sounds good to you, and then spend a little time with it and see if you want to jump to the next one. I think that I have plenty of friends who listen to that band and they love certain albums, and then they're like, oh, the next one's too much for me. And I can respect that. I think that sometimes you kind of need to mature. The band will sometimes mature faster than you will. I mean, I'm sure there's artists that you've listened to where the new album comes out and you're like, I'm not feeling that. And then 10 years go by and you're like, what is this? This is the best thing I ever heard.
Steel Wheels by the Rolling Stones. I hated it when it came out.
Yeah.
And now it's like one of my favorite Stones albums. Makes no sense. But at the time, I'm like, this is crap. This isn't. Now I'm like, God, what a great. Or Rush, Grace Under Pressure.
Yeah.
Love that album. When it came out, it wasn't Moving Pictures. It wasn't Red Barchetta. It wasn't this. And now you listen to it on its own. You go, Kid Gloves and the songs on there. You're absolutely right. Once you get past comparing it to something else, you tend to enjoy the music more.
Yeah, you fall in love with a certain album or song and you want more of it. And then the band evolves and then you're like disappointed. But yeah, like you said, when you go back and revisit it with a new lens, sometimes it ends up being your favorite album.
So is Morgan Eve going to be watching on Saturday?
Oh yeah, she's watching. She's been communicating with the kind of Rhode Island scene, and she has a couple of her, I mean, they're a pretty big band in Rhode Island. They were known in the Providence circle. They obviously live in Warren, Rhode Island. So there's a lot of good, strong fan base over there, and a lot of love and energy. So once this is all lifted, I have plans to go out to Warren, Rhode Island, do a collaboration dinner with a cool little restaurant there, and do a screening of the film. We obviously had much bigger plans. I wanted to bring her here, host her for a concert. So once all this passes, we'll definitely revisit a lot of that stuff. But in the film, we did host her at the Willis Show Bar, and
Right.
that's kind of the third chapter of the film. It was a pretty cool experience to have her come, kind of come back to Detroit and do the show that never happened because the tour was, Dave fell ill and he never got to come back and tour. So that was for me a kind of a missing piece of my puzzle that felt nice to kind of finally fit that in.
And that's freepfilmfestival.com for everybody, Saturday at 4. freepfilmfestival.com, 4 p.m. Saturday, Berzerker, James Rigato and Mabel Gray talking about the fine folks from Brown Bird, the loss of David, and Morgan Eve sharing her story.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this. I mean, with the trailer, we watched the trailer, and I didn't even ask you for the whole movie because I don't want to see it until Saturday. I want to watch it with us. I really do.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, I've watched the film 200 times now, and like really, I mean, we had the guys from Studios on the Pond do the sound engineering, which Chris over there is a genius, and Jeff. I mean, we kind of like, we over-invested, and they were really gracious and gentle on us pricing wise. They're kind of a sound studio we couldn't afford, but they believed in the project and really met us halfway. But Studios on the Pond did the sound. So I kind of recommend either Apple AirPlaying it onto your TV, or even if you're watching it on a PC, you should plug in your headphones because the sound work is just excellent.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I could with my Google phone. I'll just push it up that way. That sounds great. Hey, James, you should be proud of me. I didn't do the one thing that everybody does when they talk to a chef. You know what that is, right?
What was that?
They go, so, yeah, you're a chef. I made a great, and then whatever dish it is, right?
Yeah, what's your favorite recipe to make?
I made a brisket a month ago, James. It was awesome.
Yeah, good job.
I didn't, but I'm just saying, like, it's always, I made eggs.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Well, and thank you so much for what you guys do in Mabel Gray, and Doug's too for bringing the Clyde burger down here. Thank you.
Yeah. We know Mabel's doing that now for a curbside carryout. So
They
you
are.
can go to Mabel and get our Doug's burger Tuesday through Saturday.
But this, again, I'm so looking forward to watching this. I think a lot of people here are. We love music, especially, our radio station, CSX, we talk about classic rock being comfort food. And when you tell us a story about an artist, we gravitate to them. We want to learn about our artists. We think we know everything about Bob Seger, and we don't, and Peter Frampton, and we don't. So every time we talk to them, they share a little bit more. But to discover a band like Brown Bird, and Morgan Eve just sounds like an amazing lady. And damn it, I wish I could have seen them and David together.
Yeah, I saw him a few times, and at the Arc, I think was probably the best time. I got to see him. I took a buddy, and we went down. The Arc in Ann Arbor is an incredible venue, and watching them. I mean, that was just, I took a friend who had no interest in the band, but I had an extra ticket, and he was just blown away. He still talks about it. And I think that's kind of, that's the real takeaway with that band is that you don't need to be a fan of their style. You don't need to know anything about them. Just check out the film. It's a story of love and art and creativity and energy. And I think that, I think anybody can enjoy the film. You don't even need to be a fan of music to connect with this film.
Hey, it's a great time for it. I'm going to be sitting with the family on Saturday. James Rigato, we appreciate the time. As always, you're a great interview, and this is a wonderful project. Congratulations.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, see ya.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, dude. Thank you.
Board button there. Yeah, I'll let you know when that gets posted up there. We're cleaning up right now, and then we are good to go.
No sweat, man. I'll see you soon.
I'm going to go listen to the call, let the day begin.
I will too. Cheers.
All right.